Hey guys, so as you may or may not know, Netflix has been releasing several original TV shows as well as movies. They've been killing it with the TV shows, and a lot of them have been of great quality with a lot of great stories. However, their movies that they've been releasing, not so great. But they've released yet another one called What Happened to Monday, starring Noomi Rapace, who was in Prometheus, as well as the original Swedish versions of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. And to be honest, I was kind of nervous when they released yet another film because I've known their sort of track record on their original films and how they've been essentially playing out, whether it's good or, it's decent or it's really, really bad. This one I was kind of like, okay, it's an interesting concept. I saw the trailer for it. I feel like it's, it might be good to go with. And so I gave it a shot. And so these are my thoughts. Now, the story of What Happened to Monday is that it's actually sets place in a dystopian future where essentially population has grown so wildly out of control that now they're having sort of population restrictions. Now families can only have families with only one child. Any other siblings will have to be essentially taken to this facility and frozen until the population dies down, and then they will unfreeze them and release them essentially back into population. Kind of messed up, I know. Now, inside this world, there's actually a group of 7 siblings. The 7 children are born and given to this man who actually we find out is their grandfather, but he essentially raises them secretly all together in sort of this one minimalistic sort of home, house, whatever you may want to call it, apartment. And actually what's kind of interesting and had me most intrigued about this movie is that each sibling is named after a day of the week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday. So essentially what they all share this identity of a Karen Sutton, I believe the main character's name is. So they all share this character's identity. And the only time that they're allowed to go outside is on the day of the week for which they're named. And they take the identity of this individual, go to work, be her in the outside world, and they essentially have to lie and say they don't have any siblings, while the other 6 remain at home, sort of watch, make sure everything's okay, just sort of hang out for the day, read, do whatever it is to keep themselves busy, work out, and just sort of sit around until it's their turn of the day of the week in which they can go out. Now, eventually what happens is that one of the characters, Monday, as you may have guessed by the title, disappears. And the other 6 have to figure out what happened to her and how to sort of deal with this because now one of their essential identities is gone. Not only their identity, but their sister. So it's actually really, really interesting, and it really had me captivated just by the concept alone. Now, when I saw the trailer for this movie, I was very interested in the story, and I was actually very intrigued by the main actress, Noomi Rapace, who I liked very much in Prometheus, and a couple of her other works, although they're not critically reviewed and critically accepted and super great ratings. I really like her work a lot, so I was very intrigued. So when the movie was released, I finally watched it. And I have to say, this is one of the best movies I think I've ever seen. I was absolutely blown away by this movie, and I really, really liked it. I'm very happy to say that I really, really liked it. This has easily been my favorite Netflix movie to date. It's one of the best, hands down. I think that it has just a very beautiful story, and it feels very unique and organic. Although it does take a lot of similar themes or ideas from maybe other stories that we've known in the past, the way that it's presented, as well as the way that the story sort of plays out and things that occur, felt very much original. Yes, the world sort of feels familiar because we've sort of adventured into sort of that dystopian future where it's a little bit more glum, a little bit more dim. The world is going through a big population crisis. We've gone through this a lot in 1984, Blade Runner, you name it, we've essentially been there already. But again, the way that it's presented, the story that is essentially about these 7 sisters is so captivating. I thought it was so interesting, and the way that it plays out, it sort of plays out as a drama, but then there's a lot of action scenes to it as well, and that really surprised me. And I just really liked the way this movie played out as a whole, and it was super interesting. Now, as for the acting, I think that was very well done. Noomi Rapace, again, had to play 7 different personalities. And I thought that was pretty interesting, the way that not only are they just personalities, but she had to be on screen for all 7 of them. I really liked the way that she had to put in a lot of effort, I'm sure, and I think she did absolutely fantastic in making each sibling feel very unique in their own way. They didn't feel like they were all just the same identical person. They all obviously look the same, but they have 7 very different personalities. And the way that she presented that and portrayed each character individually was really, really good. And I feel like she did a beautiful job in blending and keeping separate at the same time all these characters, the blending of their relationships, I mean, as well as keeping them separate in their own identity. And I think that she did a really good job in that. Willem Dafoe, who plays their grandfather and raises them, we don't really get a whole lot of time with him throughout the entire movie, really. There's a couple scenes in the beginning, there's a couple scenes, I think, in the end, maybe some scattered throughout. But I feel like he did a really good job. Again, he's been doing it for a long time. He knows what he's doing. And I feel like this is one of those roles that he really did well in, despite not having a very much exposure in the film. Glenn Close, who essentially plays the leader of this group who's trying to limit the population, does a good job as well. Again, been doing it for a long time. She's very professional, so there's really not a whole lot of surprise there. But I feel like she did have this sort of back end evilness to her and what she was planning and the way she was going about things. And you knew something was a little bit off with her character. I don't want to spoil it for anyone here who may be wanting to watch the film if you haven't watched it yet. But I feel like this movie was very well acted in a lot of ways. Yes, it's not perfect because it's like a Netflix movie. There wasn't a massive budget for big A-list stars. But they did a really good job with what they had. As for the cinematography, I felt like this movie was actually really nicely done. I was kind of surprised with the overall quality that Netflix was able to put into this film. There was a lot of things that I felt could have been improved, but there was a lot of things that also sort of balanced it out and actually made it super interesting. The camera angles, the amount of work that went into each shot was actually visually beautiful. And I like the way that a lot of the stunt coordination sort of melded together with some of the dramatic things and the way it blends with the story. It just fit all very nicely into this nice puzzle. And it just sort of felt very much like a big Hollywood budget movie without some of those big Hollywood budget movie sort of scenes or big set pieces or anything like that. I would have been more than happy to have paid to see What Happened to Monday in theaters. I think it was that good. I really like this movie a lot, and I feel like it's sort of, I don't want to say it was a missed opportunity, but this was a story and something that could have been presented on the big screen essentially, and had even more of an impact, I think. It doesn't have the greatest reviews as far as like Rotten Tomatoes goes, but they're not the end-all be-all for reviews. I actually thought that this movie was way better than a lot of what critics have said, and I just highly recommend it. There's just so many good things to see in this movie. One of the cool things I think that they did was sort of presenting certain technologies of the future. There's a couple of scenes where the characters, because each character is different, Monday through Sunday or Sunday through Saturday, however you want to look at the days of the week, they all visually look different. But when they go out into the world, they have to take on this persona of Karen Sutton. So they essentially go up to this mirror and it sort of pinpoints out everything that they need to change or fix about themselves in order to look like the same person so that when they go out into the world, that person still looks the same. I thought that was really cool. Just like the advancement in technology in that aspect, there's also this really cool thing as where like some of the characters have like, I don't know if it's like a technology implant. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but they have like this thing in their hand, like the palm of their hand, where it's sort of like a touch screen sort of thing. I don't know how to describe it. It's a cool concept, but I feel like it sort of could have benefited a little bit more having had that bigger budget from a Hollywood movie. Not to say that it was bad, I just feel like that subtle things like that could have been improved upon, as well as like the overall scope of the story, as far as like the size of the city, seeing other things inside of this world could have really been built upon had that budget been larger. But I really did like sort of that drawn back scale that What Happened to Monday has. And it really draws you into the story of these 7 siblings and figuring out what happened to their sister. Now, the biggest downfall, in my opinion, in What Happened to Monday is only one thing. Obviously, I can nitpick all day about like the technology and all that stuff or like certain little things. But there's really only one big nitpick that I have, one big thing that sort of made me take a step back in what happened to Monday, and it's only actually one scene. This one scene is essentially a sex scene. Not that there's anything wrong with having a sex scene in the movie, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it just went on a little bit too long and just was a little bit too much. I felt like if that was dialed back just a little bit, or at least cut the runtime a little bit on that, or whatever you may want to call it, I felt like this would have been a near perfect movie. With that one scene, I mean, it's really, again, probably just a nitpick for me, probably nothing to other people. I just felt like it went on a little bit too long and it had a little bit too much for a Netflix film, I guess. I don't really know how to say it, but that's probably my biggest nitpick. Not that there's anything wrong with that scene, it's a tiny bit too long, just a little bit. But that was my biggest complaint. I loved everything about this movie. The acting, the stunt work, the scenes, the way the story plays out is very interesting. You're very much on a roller coaster with these siblings. It's actually really cool. It has a lot of great ideas, a lot of great concepts. Again, some of them drawn from other things, but the way it's presented just feels so unique, and it's totally worth watching. And for that reason, I'm going to give What Happened to Monday an A. This film actually really surprised me, and I felt like it had that potential when I watched the trailer, and I'm so happy to say that I feel like it fulfilled that potential in so many ways and more. And I highly recommend seeing it. As I said, it's now on Netflix. Feel free to stream it. It's about 2 hours long, but it's totally worth it. And I highly recommend it. I can't say enough good things about What Happened to Monday. So if you guys have seen it, be sure to leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below. As well as hit that like button if you feel so inclined, and as well as that subscribe button, just in case you haven't hit it already, for any future videos that I may have coming up. But other than that, those are pretty much all my thoughts and opinions on What Happened to Monday. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one.